Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Immigrants Life podcast, where we share stories of people who left their own country to chase a better life. In this episode, I sat down with Paul Chetwynd, a pro mountain biker and pioneer of this sport. He moved from Vancouver to Japan to race for Rocky Mountain, a local mountain biking brand in Vancouver. In this episode, we talk about the North Shore. For people not familiar with Vancouver, the North Shore is the north part of Vancouver, where the mountains are. Vancouver is on the ocean, so to get to the North Shore or North Vancouver, you have to cross the bridge, either from downtown or from the East Vancouver. I will add the map in the show notes if you want to check it out. I met Paul 4 years ago when I went mountain biking in Japan. He's one of the leading players for mountain biking guides in the country. You can see him in many videos on YouTube. He's actually in the video that made me go to Japan. A video from Matt Hunter, a rider from Kamloops, Canada. Because I love the sport and Paul has lived mountain biking since the very beginning, we're going to talk a lot about biking. Still, you can find excellent insight into his stories of immigrant and how moving to Japan changed his life. So, without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Paul Chetwynd. Hey Paul, how's it going?
Daniel, it's going well. It's been a long time.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Yeah, it's been, at least 4 or 5 years, I think.
Yeah, when you sent me the picture, I noticed the wheels were 26 inches on our bikes.
I think, yes, you're right. I used to have a 26 at that time. And I think at the time, you were waiting for new rims, new carbon fiber rims.
Maybe. I can't remember that.
I remember you were talking about you were excited to get a new rims.
Yeah, I might have been. Well, that would be a 27.5 inch bike then. But I thought that bike was a 26. Maybe you were riding one of my 26-inch wheel bikes.
Yes, definitely. That was my 26. I bought recently a 27.5. It was a big step. I didn't want to, but I kind of have to. There was no chance to get a 26. So, but I have to say, I didn't even feel the difference.
You didn't, huh? Yeah.
No.
I think they're definitely a little faster, maybe a bit easier, but in the end, a bike's a bike, and it's the feeling you get riding it. That's what got me into it. Anyways, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, exactly. Just honestly, I didn't really notice the difference in size. I did notice the difference in the frame, which I'm not a big fan of the frame I got right now. I really miss the old bike, but whatever.
Oh, it's interesting because the technology is getting better and better, or so they say, right?
Yeah, I think it's just because of my physiology. I think my legs are too short. And because the shock is in between the frame, so the dropper post doesn't go down enough. So it stays kind of like a 2i. So I have to be too much on the back or too much on the front when I go over bumps and that kind of stuff. And it gets, or either get too light on the front, I lose control. I'm too forward, so I get just get over the handlebars or just kick my nuts. That's the other option. So it's that's why I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, and where you're living, you get lots of bucking and get your nuts. So be careful. Change bikes. There's lots of good bikes out there.
Yeah, no, I'm working on it. Yeah, it's definitely on the list of the things needs to be changed. Get a new bike.
Cool.
I already put my eyes on a Commensal, so hopefully I can get one of those.
Yeah, lots of nice bikes out there.
Yeah, hopefully I can come back and ride with you again.
Yeah, I'd look forward to it.
I think still to this day, I think still the best trip I ever had. That was just awesome.
Japan, really? Hey,
yeah, it was.
Lots of people enjoy this country. Lots of people. People don't expect it for a cycling destination, but it's actually, like you said, the cities are packed. But once you get out there, it's beautiful out here.
No, exactly. It's just there's really not many people once you get out of the city.
Yeah, we're self-isolating here, but it's not that hard. It's just my lifestyle.
Yeah, and I remember you were living in the woods. There are not many people around your property.
But more now, people running from the city, right? They came out here and are hiding too, so can't blame them.
Yeah, but no, what actually got me about Japan is the culture. Is such a different culture compared to other countries. It's just, I don't know, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's different. And maybe that's why this Corona people are, we're hit bad, but we're not, it's not expanding because people are used to wearing masks. They have this culture about manners and stuff that I think it's helping them a lot just naturally.
Exactly. And another thing about my trip that really made the difference. I don't remember. I think I told you that the reason why I went to Japan is because I watched this video on YouTube about Matt Hunter
Yeah.
that was riding with you in Japan.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time. I remember the first day I was riding with you, I've told you the story. Like, I'm here because of this video. So, like, I asked you that, did you see it? Did you watch the video? Like, oh, yeah, I was the guy behind with the camera. Like,
Yeah.
I thought you were lying. So I went back home. I didn't fully trust you. For some reason, I don't remember why.
Yeah.
So I went back home at night and rewatched the video, and I saw you and your kid in the video. Just like,
yeah, Dana and I got the little cameo in there. We're hiking up the trail. Cool. Yeah, Matty's a good guy. He's actually helping out a little bit more in Japan right now. Between him and his sponsor, they're getting a little bit of giving a little support to some Japanese guys building trails, which is really, really good.
Oh, really?
For Matt, yeah.
Yeah, Matt is, I think, one of the main guys that brought me to the sport. I was watching his video on YouTube, and just because I was watching his video, and I really got into the sport because of him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
It's not a coincidence. I'm in Canada right now. Just
there you go.
yeah, I was Whistler was on my bucket list for many years. Kamloops is another beautiful. I mean, if you watch the video on of all the movies and videos on the internet, probably 90% are shot in British Columbia.
In BC, yeah, it's crazy. Hey,
yeah. So
when I think I missed a lot of those shots, right? Like, I came over to Japan and it just boomed after I left BC, right? You know, and I mean, the riding was great when we were there. It was already Whistler, but they weren't a bike park, and we actually raced up and down Whistler a bunch of times. We had to climb it to race the downhill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, actually, it was Blackcomb back then. Whistler didn't even have any mountain biking.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very changing world.
Yeah, and definitely the riding style here is just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy.
The black and the North Shore is double black, I think, anywhere else.
And anywhere else. I've been to so many places on the North Shore with my friends. They're like, check out this section. I'm like, okay, what do we do? They're like, oh, we just watch. We'll hike around this one. Yeah, we just can't do it, right? But the young kids are amazing, right? They ride it with style.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they probably grew up in this situation. For them, is the norm. But for me, the first time I went there, plus I think it was winter. I'm not used to like a wet conditions, because I usually ride in New Zealand where it was always dry. So going through wet rocks was just scary for me. And I remember that I think I had like a big day. I went like 4 or 5 runs. And the day after, I couldn't move a muscle. I couldn't lift a muscle. It was just so brutal on your body that I couldn't move a muscle the next day.
That's where we learned to ride, right? With cantilever brakes and no suspension on the North Shore. So you learn how to brake. You said it, in the wet and the rocks, right? If you lock your brakes up, you're going over. You're out of control, right? So you learn that fine line of where your traction is and where it's not. I think it helped all those young kids. They're just unreal when they're riding the logs and those skinny bridges, right? They just are right on the edge of the braking, right on the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think I'm too old to start doing those stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just enjoy other kind of rides, but yeah, skinny stuff is not for me.
Yeah, well, that's actually changed a lot too over the years, right? There's getting less and less of that.
Yeah, I noticed that, which is for me is great. As I said, I'm not a big fan.
Well, it's for everybody. It's pretty risky.
It is, and I don't know. Some people like the kind of style, the kind of riding. For me, I rather more like a nice and fast flowy trucks that just get speed and get jumps, that kind of things, more than technical and skinny.
Yeah, it's all good.
There's things for everybody out there.
Exactly.
So you were from Vancouver, right?
Actually, I was born in England, actually. Then my parents moved us to Canada. We went from Toronto to Vancouver when I was in high school, and just my parents happened to move to Deep Cove on the North Shore there, and just happened to be when mountain biking first came out. Was like I was in high school in '79 and '80 there in Vancouver, and a couple of guys from my high school opened up the Deep Cove bike shop, and right away I was like, okay, that's a pretty fun sport. Let's start doing that. And we're just riding in the bush, and we didn't even know what we were doing, right? And even now, some of the trails we were riding are pretty famous trails. You know, you look at Wade Simmons and he says, "Yeah, I like this trail here." It's like, okay, we used to ride that, you know, and we'd hang on and slide down it, right? But that's where we learned to ride, and it's just lucky that I came out there and found the mountain biking right away, right? It was great.
I think I even watched recently some documentary on, I think it was on Red Bull TV about the North Shore.
Yeah.
And there's some videos about the bicycle and the things they were doing at that time was just crazy.
Yeah, it's I remember Chaz, and he owns the Cove shop. He said, "Yeah, you should see Wade. He came down from Kamloops, right? Wade Simmons, and he was working at the shop as a mechanic. He's just, the kid will ride off the roof of my shop. He'll do anything, man." But that's a whole different level those kids took it to, right? You know, the original trials and free riding. They weren't racing; they were just riding, right?
Yeah. So you said that your friends in high school open and start the Cove bike?
Yeah. 3 guys opened that out right out of high school. They used to drive down to California to pick up parts. Rocky Mountain at that time laughed at them and said that mountain biking was going nowhere. They were just a road bike company.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
I'm not kidding you. That was actually when the owner of Kona Bikes was the manager of the road team at Rocky Mountain, Dan. He was a salesman at Rocky, and Rocky said mountain biking wasn't really going anywhere.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. That's way back, 79 stuff there. But the guys at the Cove, they had to drive down to California to get everything.
Why? Because everything was...
There was nothing.
Mountain bike started in California, right?
Yeah. And back then, Rocky, they started with... they started importing Ritchie frames and stuff before they started making their own. And then there was a Japanese factory started making the production bikes, and then Rocky got into it.
I didn't realize until I moved to Vancouver how many brands actually are from the North Shore.
From the North Shore, yeah, well, quite a few now, right? But back then, none were from the North Shore. Basically, the Cove was the only shop on the North Shore. They're the first in Canada, actually, for mountain biking. Back then, there was Bayshore in Vancouver. They were big on it. And that was actually where Synchros came out of this, Bayshore bikes. Peter and Pippin started Synchros bike parts out of there. It's a whole small little world. And like I said, Kona started from Rocky, really. You know, Jacob and Dan, they came, both of them out of Rocky, actually. I guess the Cove started on the North Shore, and then there's North Shore Billet was doing stuff, I guess. And now there's a bunch, right?
Yeah. There's definitely quite a few.
And even Kona's based on the North Shore now, right? So
even that was the first downhill bike I ever ridden, the Kona, and I had no idea it was from the North Shore.
Right. Yeah. Basically, all those guys at Kona, they've been riding for a long time. Actually, had Doug and Dan and Jake. We used to race against them, the boss.
And Cove, I guess, is because they probably started in the Deep Cove, or they were.
Yeah, exactly. They were all of us grew up around the same area, and it was 3 guys at first, and now it's just Chaz ended up, and Doug Dr. Do at Kona. He went to Kona years and years ago.
But you're an ambassador in Japan for Cove.
I've been selling their bikes and stuff over here, so I guess I'm an ambassador, right? Just keep it going, right? Yeah. I've been selling their stuff over here for years now, right? They're not really making any bikes anymore. It's just kind of sad, but their clothing and stuff like that, do what I can.
Oh, really? They stopped making bikes?
Well, they've got a few titanium bikes, but they're just not keeping up, right? You know, they didn't go into carbon. Now they should start making their aluminum bikes. It's just hard for small guys these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's
things change. It's like, wow.
At the same time, though, the new company, they come out with the Gorilla frame, something like that. Yeah. They started with the new carbon fiber frames, like a low cost carbon fiber frame.
Right, and that's what he should have done, is gotten into the carbon. He never did, right? And kind of missed the boat, I think.
Yeah,
but that's not. I don't know, right?
Yeah, but there's so much technology behind, and you need quite a few bucks behind to actually keep up with the technology.
Oh yeah, and it's just hard to stay in the game, right? You know, like imagine like a guy like Jazz supporting Stevie Smith for like 3 years. They co-sponsored the kid, right? But you got to sell a lot of bikes to pay for a kid to go on the World Cup and stuff. And a bike shop doesn't sell enough bikes to cover that, right? So, a couple of questionable marketing things going on there.
No, exactly. And also probably back in the days, they didn't release a new bike every single year. Probably a bike will last a little bit longer. Now
all their bikes are handmade. And he's like, it's a great bike. We don't need to change it, but people just need change anyways. I changed my my Cove shock or my downhill bike. I put the adapters for the 27.5 dropouts on the rear end, and the bike actually performs better now, right? And I ride new bikes and stuff, and they're lighter, but my bike is a solid, good downhill bike, right? I could race if I needed to. Don't need to, but the platform is what's most important, right? And the platform is actually ideal. Pedal's great.
No, yeah, exactly. But do you still racing? Do you still do races?
No. I haven't raced for other than a few triathlons and stuff once in a while, but not for a few years. Thinking about it again now because we got some time, starting to get in shape. we're not locked down out here. All we can do is ride. So 4 or 5 hours of riding every day. All of a sudden, I sort of feel like I can climb a hill now. Been a while.
Yeah, I think I'm back at the point where I'm dreaming about getting an e-bike just because I'm so out of shape.
Yeah, I'm not ready for an e-bike yet. I've tried a few of them, but I'm not ready.
Same. I did try the first one last summer, and going up was was amazing. You can go as fast as you want and be exhausted at the top. It's not that you're not doing any work.
Yeah, exactly. I actually rode one in December on Mount Seymour. Did it at 3 hours on one of those specialized Levos, which is supposedly really the best right now, according to the guy who took me riding. He said, "Yeah, these are about as good as you can get." And it was fun, but it didn't work for me, in the end.
But on the way up or on the way down?
On the way up was fine. We passed a bunch of guys pedaling up and stuff like that. But the bike. And the feeling of it felt a little sluggish, going downhill. It wasn't the same as on my lightweight, enduro bike or whatever, I didn't feel as much fun. And just personally for me, I like the feeling of hiking up a mountain and skiing down it or snowboarding down it after doing it on my own power, right? I have no need for the electricity yet.
Yeah.
And then in the area I live in here in Japan, they're putting a bunch of solar panels and cutting down forests and putting solar panels up to make electricity, and seems to me like it's a bit of a contradiction in terms of environment, right? When people are doing that, saying this is an e-bike, it's great for ecology, but really the electricity isn't free, right? It comes from somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So I'm not ready for it yet.
No, I can definitely see the fun that instead of doing a couple of laps, you do 5 laps. And that's definitely, it's just more fun. But my experience with the e-bike was great going up. I got to the top, was exhausted, but was going like at 20 km an hour. So I was just flying up the hills.
You're like Nino Schurter.
Exactly. But so what brought you to Japan?
Well, what brought me to Japan was actually a contract with Rocky Mountain Bikes to come and race mountain bikes over here for 3 months. And they said, "Do you want to go over and race in Japan for 3 months?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Give it a try." So came over here for 3 months, and then the guy who was distributing Rocky said, "Do you want to spend another year here next year?" I'm like, "Sure." And that deal kind of went bad, but I'd met enough people here in Japan by then. They're like, "Hey, we can set you up with this company to sponsor you, and we'd like you to stay. What do you think?" So I never left.
Okay. And why? What actually made you stay? Just because
Well, the first 3 months, like you've been to Japan, it's a big culture shock at first, right? You're just like, holy, everything's different. These people are weird. What are they doing? And what am I doing? And but slowly you start to see things, and you realize it's actually a big country. It's a small country, but it's actually a lot going on here when you think of culture and history, right? It's compared to what I was taught in Canada, I was basically taught 200 years of history. It's thousands of years here,
Mhm.
right? The culture is much, much more involved. And so slowly, I kind of thought I could spend a little more time here and check it out some more. And once I lost my sponsorship, actually, it gave me a lot more freedom to choose where I wanted to live. And get away from where Rocky Mountain had put me, and get out into the mountains a bit more. And then once I got out here in the mountains, I realized it's actually a pretty fantastic place to ride a bike and train and ski in the winter. There's, back then Japan was undiscovered. So I basically had 10 years here where we didn't line up on a powder day or anything, right? We just got up in the morning. We didn't have to rush, just come out and go skiing in the trees, and nobody was in there. It was just for us to play at. And for me, when I was young, that was huge bonus, actually, right? And coming from Whistler, where the powder was getting skied out quicker and quicker. And we just had it. It was game on for years. Now it's game over because Japan's been well discovered, but it's still there if you want to go get it, but it's nothing like we had it in the 90s. It was pretty incredible here.
But did you have like a chairlift and everything, or you have to hike up?
Yeah, we'd go through at the skiers. We go up and we have to have 2 jackets, so because the patrollers used to tell us it was dangerous to go in the trees. And I'm like, actually, it's not really dangerous in there. It's more dangerous out with all the punters on the runs. And they'd, we're going to take your ticket away and stuff. So we'd have a couple backpack with an extra shirt or 2 or a coat or 2 in there, and change them up every couple runs so they didn't know who we were. And we used like the whole Hakuba Valley. There's like 6 ski areas, so you can go through there in a season and only go to the same place a few times, right? If you know where you're going, right? So we played it pretty good back then.
Sweet. So in the area you live, there's how many ski field do you go around there?
Well, in Nagano-ken here, there's hundreds. I don't know how many, right?
Oh, really?
Hakuba Valley is pretty well the most famous in Nagano, I guess. But there's Shiga, and there's Nozawa Onsen, there's Miyoko. There's huge, and they all get between 4 and 5 meters of snow a year, which is huge powder snow. So, it's actually a lot busier now. A lot more foreigners living here than when I first came.
Japan is definitely more. It's well known now for especially tree runs.
Exactly. Yeah, but when we first came, that was like for the Japanese and the patrollers. They're like, no, that's really dangerous in there. You can't go in there. We're like, no, it's really good in here. And I could tell you stories about friends being patrollers having problems trying to open up the trees with their bosses and stuff, and now they're all advertising it's open, right? It's a funny game.
Yeah. And were you guys the first one to ride a snowboard at that time back then?
I wasn't actually. I was a skier, telemark skier. I telemarked all my time in Whistler, and alpine skied in Whistler a bit, but pretty well telemarking, and had some friends snowboarding back then, but I was actually pretty well telemark skiing, because I always thought that telemarking was for training would make me stronger. I don't know if you ever telemark skied. Do you know what it is?
Yes, I know. I never tried.
Right, so it's a workout on your thighs, and on your ass muscles. You're moving a lot more. So and for touring, it was good. So I just thought that was for me, with what I needed to be doing at the time, right, to get stronger for cycle racing. And I lived with a guy called Graham up in Whistler for a while, and he was actually the buyer for Blackcomb Whistler, and was sponsored by Burton. So in my house, we had the same boots and everything, same size feet. And he's like, Paul, try it, try snowboarding. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. and he's like, okay. And then I came to Japan, and another good friend of mine, he was a skier, but then he started snowboarding. And that's another story. She's another story. And he's like, yeah, like you should try snowboarding. That's what I'm doing now. And I had no partner anymore because he basically got a girlfriend, and she was a snowboarder. So he started snowboarding. So I started snowboarding. And so I started all my snowboarding here in Japan. And actually I do a lot of snowboarding now. Still ski, but more snowboarding.
Which one do you prefer in between the trees?
The snowboard, hands down. But I actually haven't used a lot of these new fat skis that have come out. Right, I have to say I haven't given it a fair shot because the skis changed a lot, which is because of the snowboarding industry. Right, they started shaping snowboards, and the skiing industry was just straight plank skis for such a long time. They never got on board, right? And finally, they started making skis like snowboards that would float in the powder better. So looks pretty fun, right? But I just haven't got the finances, I guess, to do it. And I've got a lot of snowboards, so
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah, personally, never got into skiing. Never actually appealed me. I don't know, just the look of it. I love snowboarding, and yeah, I still.
Once I found the trees on a snowboard, I never went back. That's probably the easiest thing to say. I used to ski in the trees and telemark in the skis, but when I got on a snowboard, for one, it was a lot easier, right? You can just fly through the trees, make the tight turns. It's really easy and fun.
Yeah, that's why I ask you, because you're not the first one that actually knows how to ski and snowboard. And I already asked this question to other people. Then, which one do you prefer? Especially like in the fresh powder and between the trees. And most people says, actually, I think all people that pretty much says the snowboard is way much fun.
Right. Even back when I'm talking about when I was in Worcester, I have a few friends that were pretty hardcore skiers, and they started snowboarding too. And they're like, and I don't know if you've been up to Worcester and when they have their famous West Coast powder, the heavy slush snow.
No, not yet.
Yeah, the skiing is pretty tough in that. But on a snowboard, they kind of could float through the snow much better than the skiers back then, because we had really skinny telemark skis. They were tough. Even that technology's changed a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even just the clothing stuff.
Yeah.
Before there was a big difference between a skier and a snowboarder. The ski was more like a tight pants, tight jacket, and the snowboard was like a little bit more loose. And now you can't really tell the difference.
Exactly.
So they're getting the two worlds are joining.
Yeah, I ski in my snowboard gear.
Yeah, in New Zealand, for the first time I had snowboard in New Zealand, I was using the like the orange overhaul that you use on the street, or you work on like orange with like a reflect. I used that one just because it was cheaper. I didn't have any clothes there. Like I was wearing like a sweatpants underneath, and this cover all on top. It's great. Everybody could see me on the mountain.
Riding, it didn't matter. Once you're riding, people are like, oh, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And how when did you start your business there in Japan?
I started at right around 1999, 2000, I guess. I was starting to tone down the racing, so I started doing mountain bike guiding, and I did it basically using my name in Japan as the mountain bike racer. Had a good name and still have a good name, I hope. And I was targeting Japanese only, basically, and they'd come mountain biking with balls on the weekends, and we'd go riding, and I'd help them out a little bit and show them a few hints how to get a little better climbing steep stuff or riding down steep things, and work on their technique. And it's kind of the reason that the Japanese Mountain Bike Association asked me to stick around, was just to try and help. Back then it was to bring the level of racers up a bit, and get them a little faster, and then in the end, it's more get the technique and stuff. And now the riders here, just like everywhere, the young kids are great, right? You watch them, definitely.
Okay. So to that point, before you started your own shop and your own business, were you just like a racing professionally? That was
Yeah, I was racing professionally and getting paid by I guess Trek. I raced for Trek for 4 years and Scott for 5 years, I guess. And Rocky Mountain got me over here, and rode on the road scene here in Japan, on the road racing, on what they call it, the business league. It's like they're pro teams, but they're sponsored. The sponsorship program for the road in Japan and Olympic athletes here is the company sponsors you. It's not like you become an individual pro. You work for a company, and they support you while you're trying to be an athlete. which is, and you're supposed to have a job when you finish your career in sports, which is actually a pretty good thing. You know, I know a lot of Canadian athletes who train pretty well, you know, for the Olympics, and they have their dream, but they have nothing when they finish their dream, right? So this business league racing in Japan is actually, I think, not a bad idea, right? It people out of university get a job and off they go. It's not a bad system. So I got on a business league team that a friend of mine asked me to join after I trained with him for a Japanese guy. He did the Barcelona Olympics for Japan, was Japan champ a few times. So I got on a really good road team, which was really fun for me because I'm not a road rider, just a mountain biker. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I could do real high level road races in Asia, which was real fun.
Okay. Do you want to add anything else about your business, about your shop?
Oh yeah, well, with the shop, I started with the shop in around 2000, and that wasn't really road riding at all. It was directed mainly at the Japanese mountain bikers, just to help them and take them for a ride. And you know, it's funny now that enduro racing is really fun. Back then, I would basically make my customers ride up a mountain and ride down the trail back to the one on the mountain. Mm-hmm. It kind of sounds like enduro right now, right? You know, it's all popular, but it's never really changed mountain biking, right? It's just this word, I think, like enduro, right? That's what we've always been doing on a mountain bike, right? Climbing up a mountain to ride down. And but back then, people would complain a little bit about how much climbing we had to do. But now people kind of want to climb a little bit, which is kind of interesting change in the outlook of people riding bikes these days. I kind of like that, you know. For as a cross country racer, of course, climbing has never been a problem, but lots of people always are whining about it. Nowadays, it's more like anti-shuttle here in Japan. People want to ride up the hill, and shuttling is no good and stuff like that. So it's a very, very interesting world, I think.
Oh, really? So I think I'm still old school. I'd rather have a shuttle every day of the week. Just I'm not a big fan of like a riding up. I don't feel like accomplished.
It's also here in Japan, because of the trail access and stuff, a lot of places don't want the shuttling going on because it just adds to the wear of the trail, right? You know, like you say, on an e-bike, you can do five runs instead of 2 or whatever, right? It's more on the trail and respecting the mountain.
Yeah.
So you ride up it and you respect the mountain, and that's a big thing in Japan. That it might be tough to hear, but I kind of think it's the way it's going to have to be in mountain biking if we want to keep the game going. In Vancouver, people can maintain the trails, so it's okay. But I hear there's problems in Worcester, you know, with the e-bikes. The guys doing exactly that, ripping it up, and the guys maintaining the trails are like, we're spending a lot of money on this and we're not getting anything out of it, right? Because these guys in the e-bikes come up and shred their trails, and they're not putting anything into it, which is a big point anywhere, is the maintenance of the trails and how much you're allowed to. In Japan, we're not allowed to maintain the trails.
Yeah, I remember that.
We really have to just, you know, it's whose mountain, it's what are you doing? You can't dig, you can't do things, right? So it's more like save what you've got.
Yeah. I remember you were saying that last time I was there. I thought things that might have changed in the meantime, but
no, not a whole lot changed. If anything, there's a few signs and a few locals that you know. Of course, I've shuttled with my customers. I'm sure I shuttled with you, right? But a few places are like, well, we don't really want the shuttling going on anymore. The local people don't like it and stuff. So you have to respect that. If you like mountain biking, you have to respect that, because I don't want to see the trails disappear. That's for me, it's a horrible thing to have. I don't want my reputation having that happen to me, right? You know, especially for the local people, you want to have that on your mind, even, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. In fact, I remember that you were saying to not share the Strava or the GPS track that was recording on any platform, because you said they don't want other people to know where all the trails are.
What's going on, exactly. Yeah, I've had trouble. Some people out there doing that, right? They look at pictures and figure out what's going on, and you know, some people advertising they were going to guarantee people so many vertical. It's like, hey man, these guys don't want you shuttling. How can you guarantee 5,000 vertical feet in a day unless you climb it, right? You know. Yeah. and things like that. They took that down pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think because of that, you are a big name in Japan for as a tourist, as a mountain bike guide, right? Because
yeah, I think I've got a pretty good reputation, right?
At least, I mean, most of the video you find on YouTube about like a professional riders or like a quite famous riders, you usually are in the picture. You usually are in those videos.
I'm in a few of them, right? And I'm not in a few too, right? And I've had a few people, you know, like I've actually seen. I'm not going to mention the videos and stuff, but people like in Japan just skidding on the trails and locking the brakes and being an idiots in the trails. People don't like that in Japan, and it's just not respecting their mountains. And there's a few groups that I'm glad I didn't get involved with that have come through, and I haven't actually commented too much on them, but just like, you know, that's not the way it happens. I don't know if you saw what Sam Pilgrim did a few months ago. He came to Japan and rode through Tokyo and just rode everywhere with no respect, and he took it down, and he had his life threatened actually by some Japanese guys, right? I don't know how serious they were, but even Sam on Twitter is like, wow, I didn't know they were that serious about it. So, well, you just don't ride stairs at shrines and things without getting the okay. You know, they were guerrilla riding, you know, kind of riding like urban riders through Tokyo, and it was actually a pretty cool video, but they didn't get the okay on any of it. And they actually, you know, it's like blasphemy almost what they did, right? So
yeah, you need to respect.
Yeah, and Sam's respect was he actually took it down right away, but he pissed off a lot of people. When he was here before, I was working with him. We actually did film him at a shrine and stuff, but we actually got the shrines okay. They said, yeah, sure, go ahead, make your jumps, do it, right? But you have to show them respect of what you're doing before you do that type of thing, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, it's a shame because Japan could be, like a mountain bike for Japan could be a really good business, could be actually help a lot of businesses and tourism. There's so many beautiful places to ride your bike if you only be allowed to be allowed to actually build trails.
Exactly. But it's their culture. It takes a long time. I've been here like 20 years, right? And over 20 years. And when I first came, people said that it takes like 10 years before things catch on. Just like we were talking about the powder, right? It took almost 15 years of people, like even we made videos. We made videos. We brought the famous snowboarders over. We made videos in the powder, and that kind of exposed this place. And it still took another 10 years or so before the ski areas. Even now, they're just opening up their powder zones and stuff, right? Trying to take advantage of the foreign market now, right?
Yeah.
But it took a long time for that. And ski industry is a lot more powerful than the mountain bike industry, right? So it's going to take time. Like I said, Matt Hunter, he was over here just in the fall. I wish I could have gone and seen him, but I was actually in Canada then. But there's people doing good things, and slowly, you know, it's slowly changing, and it'll just take a little longer. And once a few people see that there is a business and that it does work, I think it'll really start to take off. I hope I'm still alive, right? You know, I'm getting older and older. I'd like to see the day, but
yeah,
but it is changing for sure. And the potential is huge.
Yeah, mountain biking in the last 5 to 10 years actually grew quite a bit, which is becoming more popular every year.
When what you don't see and what I see is Asia, right? You know, like the riders from Hong Kong they've actually got a good scene going there, and they're good riders now coming over, and from Taiwan and Singapore and Malaysia. I rode with these guys from Singapore and Malaysia in Nepal in January, and they're really, really good riders. And the whole scene in Thailand and Indonesia, it's huge, and they have mountains too. And it's amazing how big it's grown to me, this whole Asian scene. You know, of course, American and Canadians and Europeans have been doing it for quite a while, but the amount of Asians starting to ride is pretty impressive, and there's a lot of us over here, right?
That's actually a huge market.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their economics are, but my customers that come from there all are quite wealthy customers. They have money to play with. They have very nice bikes, and they're good riders actually. I mean, Japan as a country is very attractive to Asians, or anybody, because it's so clean. The food is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just about the riding for them, it's about everything, right? They really enjoy being in Japan compared to maybe where they live. Like Singapore is a very, very dense country. Hong Kong as well. Here we get them out in the mountains. You give them, what's a good, we just take them to a supermarket and they buy the food, the sushi at the supermarket, and it's better than the restaurants in their home country. They're saying this is like amazing. It's just fresh sushi right at the food. And it is. It's amazing, right?
I don't know. Actually, I've been there for 20 days in Japan.
Yeah.
And I never ordered food. I've always been with somebody else, a local, that will order food for me.
Right.
And you know what? They never got me to try the sushi. So I never tried sushi in Japan.
Right. That's funny.
I didn't even thought about it. It was just like, okay, I'm with locals, whatever. They get what's local.
This is what it is.
And they never order sushi.
Right.
They never order it.
Well, sushi is, not it's not like an everyday food for them. That's for sure, right? A couple times a week a month at the most. And another thing that I see a lot of my customers, Asian customers that like here, is the fruit in Japan. They just go nuts over the fruit here. I don't know if it's just the quality. The Japanese like high quality of everything, right? And they throw beautiful apples away. They don't throw them away, but they're going to get made into juice or something, and they only sell the perfect apples and stuff, and they have like sugar coming out of them, right? It's
definitely Japan is. I think I watched a documentary I think it was on Amazon Prime about what's the guy, what's his name? The guy from the Top Gear.
Oh yeah.
He was there for like 6 months, and he did a series about in Japan, from the north of Japan, the very top, this island on top of the north,
really?
and all the way to the south of Japan. And it's such a different country. There's got beautiful, like a tropical islands to mountains,
everything.
to everything.
Yeah, everything.
And I don't know, it's such an amazing country. I think it's just because I couldn't get over the. At least when I was there, I couldn't get over to the culture. There's such a different kind of culture that I don't think I will be able to live in Japan.
Right. Well, lots of people are like that. People are like, "How could you stand that? How do you deal with it?" It's like, I don't have to deal with it too, right? Where I live, but there's parts of it that I do kind of enjoy as well, right? In their culture, there's definitely some clashes sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's such a different culture that
it's different.
I couldn't get used to it, and I don't think. But at the same time, I really hope I can get back to Japan, either in summer or winter, whatever, because it's either snowboard or mountain biking. So,
or both. If you come in the winter, you can do both here.
Can you actually do good mountain biking in winter?
Oh yeah, I mean, around like, just say for Tokyo, it never snows there. You can go up to you can at least 1,000 meters in the mountains there, and there's no snow. Lots of nice riding.
Okay, I didn't know that. What's the biggest upside about being an immigrant?
The biggest upside, it's a funny thing to answer, but the biggest upside of being an immigrant for me in Japan is learning, as a white guy, as learning discrimination. There is discrimination in this country, but for foreigners, and it's not so bad. And as a white guy, it's actually not as bad for me as what's a good example? Say an Iranian guy or something like that. There's different levels, but there's definitely some discrimination. So it's actually a kind of for me as a human being, a little bit of an eye opener, of what it's like to not be the privileged white guy, right? Like we are, and growing up in North America, we're the privileged white people. We didn't know it. I didn't know it, right? I'm just grew up. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's just what we are. And I come over here and I see and I can feel a little bit sometimes, and it's actually, what's the word? Humbling. It's good for you. It makes you think about other people in the world, right? And it's just good for all humans, right? I think every American should get out of their country once in a while and have a look inside, right?
Exactly, and be on the other side.
Yeah, have a look at what they look like, right? It's a very, very a good eye opener, and that's one of the biggest things that happened to me over here, actually. And I actually thank the Japanese for it, and they know it. Everybody knows every country has discrimination. And of course, they want to protect their country. I totally understand it, but it was very good for me.
Yeah. And what was the main thing that helped you in your journey?
Having, like I said, the freedom to do what I wanted when I started to be like, I was totally by myself. And when my I didn't talk about it, but when my sponsor with Rocky, he went out of business after he'd already told me he was going to pay me a good salary for the next season and stuff. So I was actually left pretty high and dry here in Japan. And I lived in an apartment that had, the squat toilet, and had no flushing water. It had just a cold water tap, and it had a couple electrical outlets, but it cost $100 a month, this little apartment. And so I had to live there for like 3 months while I had nothing. And but like I said, the Japanese Mountain Bike Association, they really, really, they heard the problem I had, and that they really asked me to stick around and stick it out. They introduced me to a few companies, Japanese companies, and they all kind of got together and helped me out a lot. So I appreciate that a lot. And once I started to get a little money together, I had the freedom to for one, I could leave the area I was living in and get away from that area, which was a tourist area near Tokyo called Hakone. And it's just too much tourism for riding a bike, right? Too many buses, too many cars, and it wasn't ideal for me at all. So I could actually go somewhere. The year before, I'd been out racing and seen some pretty beautiful areas, and I'm like, I might as well live out there. What am I doing here? I want to get out there, and that freedom gave me that. And then you got to produce, right? You got to make. You're on your own, so you got to produce some results. You got to produce for your sponsor and make them happy to give you the money every year. So kind of made me get on it in that regard, right? My training got a lot better as well. Living here in Japan, the diet is fantastic here. All sorts of things kind of came my way, right? I had a place to settle down. I was very happy where I lived. We had, I don't know if you know what the onsen is, the hot springs. You remember we went to the hot springs, and they're everywhere in Japan, right?
No, I don't think I was allowed because I have a tattoo.
Oh, you got a tattoo, right? Well, that's your loss. But they're getting in a few places are allowing a few more tattoos. I actually had there's an article in singletracks.com that just went up last week that this guy Klaus, he was over last year with his brother and his friend, and he has some tattoos, but we got him in a few onsens, and he was really happy, right? But these hot springs, having them in my backyard was I could go and get relaxed every day. It was like having a massage every night. Little things that kind of helped you as an athlete to get better, right? And to just be resting and having the great diet. I went back to Canada and had a massage from this girl who knows me quite well, and she's like, "What have you been doing, Paul?" And I'm like, "You know what? I just living smarter, right? The diet's better for me." And she's like, "I can just tell giving you a massage that you're on right now, right?" And I go, "Yeah, I feel great." And this is I thought I was a pretty elite athlete in Canada, but she's like, "I can't believe your muscles, they're way better." And this is after 2 years of not seeing her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was something, for me, that was, that girl who she was actually world downhill champion, this woman, first world women's downhill champion, Cindy Devine, but she's actually a physiotherapist. And she knew me very well. And what a compliment it was for me after 2 years. She's like, "I can't believe your body, man. It's beautiful." Oh, okay. I mean, she was just massaging me, right? And she could tell. So there's all sorts of little things that I think just came together for me in Japan. I definitely got better as a bike rider. Way better, way stronger.
Was that part of because you have to push yourself to stay in the country?
I think there's pressure. You need results to make money, right? And another thing is, like, I hooked up with this guy on his road team, and he was getting us in the highest level racing in Japan at the time. All the big races, and I got to race like the World Pro Road Race Champion. I got to race some of the best guys in the world. They came over here for some of the season ending. They're on holiday, but still, we got to race with these guys, right? And it wasn't easy. Even if they're on holiday, it wasn't easy with those guys. Yeah, just training with this guy, right? He's an Olympic athlete. He got 16th in the Olympic road race, right? He's no slouch, and just getting to go out and ride with this guy every day and train like he is, it just helps. And the diet, I'm sure the Japanese diet just got me away from pizzas and stuff like that, right? And it was just good for me. Still is good for me here.
But even then, when you were living in the North Shore, you were hanging out with good athletes, right?
Oh, lots of good riders. My friend Andrew, he was Canadian road race champ in like '86 or something like that, and he showed us tons as well. And we had all these guys to look up to. But you got to remember, mountain biking that back then, there was no coach, there was no any structure. We were just like out there, riding. We used to ride so much, it was ridiculous, right? The more we did, the more riding we did, the stronger we get. That was our thing, like 8 hours a day, let's do it. But that's actually not I remember Andrew coming up to us saying, well, do you do this every day? Yeah, we do this every day. And do you do this before race? Yeah, sometimes twice. Maybe you should take a day off, things like that. We had no idea, right? And so you have good athletes, but as mountain bikers, we didn't know anything, right? We're just playing it by ear, right? I learned so much once I started to do it properly, right? And of course, it makes you better, right?
Yeah.
These days, it's even more strict what they're doing, with all that. But we didn't know much about intervals. There's no coach. I went to the World Championships down, or the first ones in Colorado, and I remember Patrice from Quebec. He was in charge of the mountain bike team for Canada. He came up to me after the race in Durango, the Colorado champ. He said, "Who the fuck are you?" He doesn't even know that, I had like 7th place in the race. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't even know you were there racing. You're doing great." So my name's not even on the list for the Canadian team. But that was okay. He's like, "You can qualify. You're okay." But that was what it was back then, right? There was nothing going on. It was just starting. But it was a great time to be doing it too, I'll tell you that. We had a lot of fun, so no complaints.
Yeah, back then, mountain bike was definitely a completely different sport from where it is right now.
For sure.
Because bicycle go way more safer.
Yeah.
And much easier to pedal, much easier to get up, much easier to get down. So if you see the trails that I do now in the North Shore with the full suspension, they used to do with even probably no suspension at all.
Yeah, we had nothing. Just stupid.
That's just brutal.
We didn't even have helmets at first. I think I spent 2 years riding the North Shore without a helmet.
Holy.
Yeah. There's what's the trail? Severed Dick. Yeah, that's like the original steep trail on the North Shore. We were riding that. We actually probably just started wearing helmets when we put that line in. But that's a pretty famous trail. It's still there, right? It's like, holy, just straight down.
Yeah. Is it true that some companies, you would lose your warranty on your bike if you knew they were riding on the North Shore?
Oh, I don't know about that. Probably after I left there, maybe, because there was some stupid stuff. But I never heard any of that because I was probably not around there then, right? I started racing and started to go down to the States and stuff like that and do the racing down there because that's where the racing was back then. Like the big level was the U.S. So I spent a lot of time in Colorado and California, and a couple of years I went as far as Florida actually and spent the winter in Florida training down there with those guys. Actually helped me huge too, right? That was a friend of mine, mountain bikers, to come to Florida and do it the pro way because all the East Coast professional road racers spend their winter in Florida. So we were putting in like 800 kilometers a week on the road bikes. It was easy, just flat riding and on the road bikes. But then we started doing intervals, and it was another like a learning experience for me there, riding with the road pros.
It just got better, like physically better.
Oh yeah, they just makes you better, right? And living. I actually lived with two. There was five of us in a house, two couples, and I lived in this girl's closet. And Jeannie, she got fourth place in the Atlanta road race, Jeannie Goulet. So she was pretty world class. And Karen, the other girl, she was number one in the States for a long time in road racing at Criterium. She was like the superstar in women's cycling there in the States. Her boyfriend was a track racer and who did good in the Seoul Olympics. And Jimmy, my friend, he was a good mountain biker, and he was Jeannie's boyfriend. And every day we would get together with like 50 pros or whatever and go for a ride, and they all help you out, right? And they're all like, hey man, you should probably not ride there and crash me. You should just do this. We're strong, right? The mountain bikers are strong, but we didn't really know much, right? So those people all kind of, hey man, try this, and do this. And they those guys that just from training, they would go to races on the weekends in the road racing. They're, okay, Paul, this race, do this. And they upgraded me from category 4 to Pro 1, 2. And in like 3 months, I was racing with them. And then they're not helping me anymore. Like, nope, now you're racing for our money. Came over, right? But until I got to their level, and then the funny thing is, and when I got to their level, it was, until then, the category 3 and stuff, I could ride at the front and race hard and maybe win. But once I got up to the pro level, you're at the back hanging on, and they're like, yeah, just use it for training now. And that's all I could do basically. But it's still, all those little things help you out in the end, right?
Okay, yeah. Do you have any regrets about leaving your country, leaving Canada?
Well, every time I go back to Canada, I go for a mountain bike ride. And like I said, I grew up right on Mount Seymour there, right? That's where I learned to mountain bike. And I go for a ride there and all over. I go up to Whistler, and the whole way up to Whistler, there's a bunch of trails I've never ridden. And my friend's like, oh, there's a killer trail here. There's a really good trail here. Takes a day to climb up there to get back down, right? And I missed all that. So when I go back to BC, I see how much this mountain biking has grown, especially compared to Japan, right? It hasn't grown at all compared to that. And I definitely wonder what I'm doing sometimes. But then I come back here and I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
But that's my biggest regret. It's like not getting to be part of that whole growth in mountain biking that happened in Canada, and I missed it here in Japan, right?
Oh, well, maybe in 5-10 years you will living there in Japan.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, we still got some great trails and stuff here, but it's just the amount. I've done the BC race twice. That
Yeah.
week-long race. I've done it twice, and every time I'm just I'm blown away how good the trails are and how good the riding has got, right? I used to race in BC, and we'd go around and do little races everywhere, and it's like phenomenal what's happened in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And Canada is like the perfect storm. Mountain biking is the perfect storm for that country, with all the mountains and all that free land there. It's actually beautiful sport for Canada.
It is absolutely. It is. And do you feel lucky to be an immigrant?
Yeah, I guess I feel lucky. I chose to live here, right? So, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy with my house, the shop, with my family. We've got a good family. I've got a beautiful wife. We've got 2 good kids. Yeah, I'm happy with the path I chose for sure. Not a regret at all in my life at all.
Sweet. Yeah, no, I remember you got a nice place there, a nice shop with a beautiful view. I think at the time, it was fairly new, the shop.
Yeah, it's only, I think we're in our 5th year of the shop now. It was pretty brand new when you showed up, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 2000. Yeah, it was like 4 years ago. Yeah, it was.
Exactly. We just started it then.
Yeah.
Just instead of running the show out of our house, we decided to go there, and it's doing a lot better now.
Yeah, no, it was actually definitely a good location, a good shop. If you could go back in time to when you left Canada to go to Japan, what would you say to your young self?
What would I say? Go harder.
Why were you afraid, or you were not?
Maybe a little tentative, right, on what you're doing, right? Always wondering if you're doing the right thing, right? But once you jump in, you got to jump in full on, right? You know, like I quit my job. I told my parents I'm going to go be a bike racer. Like, you're crazy. You know, that's, what are you doing, right? You know, my first pro contract was for $500 a month, right? And they're like, you're making $3,000 a month at your job. You're going for 5. I'm like, I'm going for 5, right? So, you know, you're risking a lot, right?
Yeah.
Professional mountain biking when I started was not really an option, right? There's not many of them out there, right? So I wish I'd done a few things a little different, but not a lot. You know, one thing I wish I had done is saved every bike I ever had. I lost a few to some thieves and stuff, but I really wish I had all my bikes. But because we weren't getting paid any money, you have to sell that stuff to keep the game going, you know? It's just like, you have to get rid of it. But there's a few bikes in there that I wish I hadn't got rid of. One being a Ritchie, a handmade Ritchie I wish I had never sold.
Why? It was just
that was just a beautiful classic bike. And Tom actually, he came to Canada and I think I bought it through, I bought it through the bike group, which is Kona now. And they were importing Ritchies by then. And it was a really nice bike. And everybody said, Paul, this is the bike for you. And because it's beefy, I was kind of breaking stuff. And it had the forks from a tandem on it that Tom recognized when he came. And he said, oh, you got that bike. And you're the guy. I go, yeah, I'm the guy. And having him come up to me and say, that's the bike he built, especially for me, you're the guy. And that's the bike I wish I'd kept, right? You know, it was a classic handmade Tom Ritchie, filet brazing, and everything was gorgeous. Two towing paint job. And I had to sell it.
Did you try to track it down, or?
You know, I actually sent it back. I remember Jacob at Kona, they painted it because I'd scratched it up so bad over 2 years. They painted it and it got sold to a guy over in Victoria. I remember that much, but I don't know anymore. Hopefully he's got it.
Yeah, it would be hard to track it down now in Victoria. But maybe Japan would be a little bit easier.
Yeah. I had a Rocky Mountain Thunderbolt that was handmade too. That got stolen and lost into the ocean. I heard about it.
Where? You're in Japan or
in Canada?
Okay. Yeah, Canada is so bad about bikes.
They took the parts and threw the frames in the ocean.
Bikes get stolen so often here in Canada.
Yeah.
I got my bike stolen. I was not on my mountain bike. It was my road bike, but got stolen within 2.5 months. So.
Yeah, another nice thing about Japan is when I moved out here, I actually lived with a Japanese guy, Dan. He was racing World Cups and stuff. And in our garage, we had at one point 13 bicycles parked in an open garage with no garage door, anything, 0 locks, 2 years, and they never went. We had Mavic wheels hanging above the cars, just wheel sets hanging there. Nothing got touched.
Yeah,
amazing country. It's changing a bit, but it's still. I'll leave my bike out front of a 7-Eleven and go in and get a drink and be out of there, and it'll still be sitting there, right? People aren't driving around looking for your stuff, right? Respect.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember. Even New Zealand was very similar. It was probably not that good as Japan is, but still, we never locked the front door.
Yeah, I've never locked this house. Never.
That's one thing I miss about New Zealand.
Yeah, it's great. You trust your neighbors.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the last one, where people can find you.
So we were talking about my shop. It's called Yatsugatake Cycling. Yatsugatake is the name of the mountain behind us. That's really easy to find. It's on Facebook or Twitter or on the internet. It's no problem. Yatsugatake Cycling.
Okay.
My name is Paul Chetwynd. If you punch me in the search, you'll find me too pretty quick. Looking forward to hearing from anybody.
Sweet. I will definitely put all the links and everything in the show notes.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
What?
I said, do me right.
Okay.
kind of the polite way of doing it, and that's basically the translation. The Japanese use it a lot. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu is like treat me right. That's all it is. Another very nice way to show your respect, right?
So sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm sure you got even when you walk into a convenience store or anything, they're they're saying to you, "Welcome to our store. Treat us right when you come in." Right? It's all about respect here.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about the culture, right? About the language. For me, from coming from Italy to learning English from Italian country, even like asking people, "How are you?" The kind of things that ask you to care about the other person. Well, in Italy, we don't have that. We don't have
right.
If somebody asks you, "How are you?" in Italy, like, what do you want? Why do you want to know?
Yeah,
and
right.
And having the culture like treat me right in Japan, I think is beautiful.
Yeah, it's just little things, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Arigato.
Great talking to you, Daniel. And hopefully you'll come visit us soon. If not, I'll see you in Vancouver.
Hope so. Either way, hopefully we can ride together again.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Paul. I love the part we spoke about discrimination. I had a similar experience, not because of the color of my skin, but because my English didn't allow me to communicate properly. I had the feeling that they thought I wasn't smart enough. In some way, I felt like I was less than them. If you had a similar experience with discrimination, send me an email at daniel@immigrantslife.com. I'd like to hear from you. Also, you will find all the links and how to get in touch with Paul in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe to this show wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll talk to you in the next one. Ciao.